Listen to Downtown Hot Radio on the air 24 hours a day and 7 days a week.
You're now tuned into the Real Rap Radio Show. I'm your host, Walil Archer, on Down to Hot Radio. I have my special guest with me. I have Amy Twilegar. How are you today?
Wonderful. Thank you. How are you doing?
So excited to have you as a guest. Talk about your book today.
Well, thank you for having me. So my book, Psychology Within the Context of Psychiatry, Closing the Translational Gap, is really there's a miscommunication between psychology and psychiatry in the sense that when you grow up in childhood fear, when you're abused as a child, neglect and or abuse or both, you develop this hypervigilance and therefore hyperactivity of the nervous system arousal activity. And when you have a second set of close, intimate relationships in the early adulthood years, which is a critical phase of development for learning, you're kind of in a bad position because you're going from one abusive environment to another abusive environment, whether you're resilient in adolescence or not. Those are close, intimate relationships, and relational instability, emotional self-regulation is compromised, and your attention spirals out of control. So my main point to writing this book is to raise awareness that ADHD can develop in adulthood. And according to the current diagnostic criteria, which is rigidly confined, it says that it must be present prior to 12 years of age and not comorbid with an anxiety disorder. Wrong. Wrong, because that's the precursor variable. When children raised with an abusive home environment, they can't do anything, and when they're a dependent on that parent-child dyad, and then they finally are able to get a voice of their own to say, "Hey, I have a functional problem with my cognitive, my reasoning skills, abilities, and deductive logic, what have you. I can't think clearly. I can't hold a job. I can't think clearly in school. It's a problem. And people are suffering every day. And when they can finally speak up for themselves, they can't get the help that they need as early adults, which is 20 to 22 years of age on average. It is a problem in the world today. And I see people all around me that are suffering, and everybody I've known that I talk to about this say the same thing. And it's really, it needs readdressing in terms of a revision for that um, criteria variable to say, hey, have you been abused as a child?
Okay, so you said there's no age, so as an adult, they could develop the symptoms.
Develop in adulthood. Yes, that is my main point that I'm driving hard home. My book is several research studies, and it proves it because they have research studies for relating trauma in adulthood to the severity of childhood abuse. They have insecure attachment with, which is with the primary caregiver relationship, typically with the mother, but I'm not, going there. With adult ADHD, you can get diagnosed with ADHD as an adult, but diagnostic criteria specifically states that it must be present prior to 12 years of age, which is childhood, and it must be not comorbid with an anxiety disorder, and those are both incorrect. They can't even get help when they're able to. And then what's to come of that? How functional in society can you really be when you can't even think straight and self-regulate your emotions? Now you have instability in relationships too. It's a calamity that needs to be changed. They need to include that precursor variable when they assess adults, is what I'm saying.
Now, talk to me as an adult, what are some of the symptoms that people could look for to see if they develop in it?
Restlessness, reading a paragraph and not retaining any information. Just your cognitive fog. You cannot think clearly, and you certainly can't remember things. And it impedes your awareness of what's really happening around you because you're so focused on the internal distress you're experiencing inside. Of course, in that developmental phase, when brain maturational processes occur in 20 to 22 years old, that's when the brain ceases in development for typically emotional regulation patterns. And when that happens and you get, say, heartbroken at 20 to 22 years old, now you have relational instability again and a sense of mistrust and unsafety in your next set of close, intimate relationships. And it just spirals out of control again. And the reason is because they're, how do I say, the dendritic connections in the brain are forming and, ceasing to form for the most part. And they say you can do exercise, you can go and take a shower or walk it off. No, you can't, because when those dendritic connections in that developing brain, that's at the point where you don't want those things to reoccur and that trauma to be experienced. That's the worst time to have it happen because it comes back tenfold. And that research is in my book too. I have neuroimaging scan studies. I have it's everything. I covered all bases. Basically, my book is a research compilation to prove how and why it can develop in adulthood. They need to take into that developmental factor a little bit more seriously because it does not have to be present in childhood. That fearful child doesn't have ADHD, they just grew up in fear. And so hypervigilance, hyperactivity, in adulthood, bad relationship, 20 years old, then they're doomed.
So, do you think social media play a role in ADHD?
No, not really. Not really. I mean, people are become more introverted and how do I say? They just keep to themselves more because they're looked at as to the outsider, but it's a social stigma, okay, for one thing. And people are well aware that yes, it is a childhood disorder, I'm sure, but the fact of the matter is it doesn't have to be present in childhood for it to develop in adulthood because those precursor predispositional factors. And so that's my main point I'm trying to hit home here with writing this book and raise awareness because something needs to change. So social media, um, it probably, I would say, well, it probably helps with their attention when they recoil and they stick to themselves. They can't get the diagnosis that they need, and they're not functioning correctly in society because they can't have cognitive control over their selective attentional shifts. So therefore, they're looked at in a weird way. They can't get the help they need, and so obviously yes, social media probably helps a little bit, but at the end of the day, no, it's just it's just sad.
Now, how did you come up with the title to your book?
Well, because I was looking at psychology and I was looking at biology. So when I looked at the two a little bit more in depth, I saw all the relationships between these studies and everything. But when you piece things together like a web, as Carl Jung once said, you you piece them together like a web, you see not only the patterns in things, you see the inconsistencies, you see the problem in things. That is what really stemmed my interest in this because it makes perfect sense how one thing can lead to another to predispose you, given the triggers in the environmental context later on for late onset adult ADHD. And so that's really what psychology and psychiatry um, that's where it goes wrong because they have to be diagnosed first by the psychologist in order to be referred to a psychiatrist. And so how are you going to get the medical help you need in that subpopulation? Thank goodness it's not a whole lot more than it is because children don't usually grow up being abused. But in that subcategory of people, there's a disconnect there. And so they can't even see a psychiatrist without getting the proper diagnosis from a psychologist in the assessment in the clinical setting first. So that's where it goes wrong. Biology and psychology are clashing.
Now, talk to me about your creativity when it came to writing this book.
I have a passion for the material because I saw what the problem was here. What is the missing piece? Because I knew that there was something wrong when I was doing all this research through my educational pursuits. I I really had I really took to the ADHD thing because it's so widely accepted that it's a childhood disorder, for one thing. And I took a lot of developmental classes. And I thought, hold on a minute, there's got to be something wrong here because all these adults that have ADHD that didn't have it in childhood, something's wrong here. And so I made it, I devoted my life really to this research compilation that is my book, to proving what is that missing link. And it baffles me that people haven't come up with it yet, but I think they're starting to get the idea. I'm just glad I published my book when I did, and it needs to be known. People suffer every day and they shouldn't have had to do that. They just need to be diagnosed so that they can get the treatment that they need.
Now, talk to me about the readers. What would you like for the readers to take away from reading this book?
Change the books. Do whatever it takes. Raise the awareness for educators. I'm still pursuing my educational pursuits in order to get the message out there because it makes sense too. And the scientific facts are in the book. I have fMRI scans in the book, in addition to a personal study that I conducted and studies on anxiety and depression, which is a huge compilation on that one, and as well as insecure attachment relationships to adult ADHD specifically. And so what my take-home message is, let's make this be known. It can help so many people not be quote unquote dysfunctional in society, and they suffer. They can't even function normally when they can't think clearly. Would you?
Right. Now, when you say you want people to get the treatment that they need, what are some of the treatments that's out there for people?
Well, it all depends. If it comes down to it, medication, and they cannot get access to that medication without, if it's at that level and that severity, they literally, it's impossible to get access to that without being referred to a psychiatrist who can prescribe medicine. And psychologists, in my prediction, in 10 years will be able to prescribe medication if they get this knowledge base and to say, hey, hold on a minute, these neurotransmitters and these dendritic connections with this developmental perspective are very interrelated when it comes to translational developmental psychobiology.
Now, when writing this book, did you experience writer's block? And if so, how did you overcome it?
Not at all. It came straight from my memory alone. I'm that passionate about it. So it's like nothing talking to you right now. I don't have a script here. I talk about it all the time to people who don't even care or understand me, but I just spout it out to anybody and everybody. I mean, it's not just reinforcing it in my own mind, repeating the same thing over and over again, but it's because it's true. It's the truth, and the science backs it up.
And can you tell us why you're so passionate about it?
Yes, because I would know.
Are you dealing with any family members that's facing it at this moment?
No.
Okay. Now, when writing this book, did you face any challenges with writing the book?
Oof. to get it published was, oh man, I had no idea the process that was. I would say the biggest hurdle, if you're asking, was to just spout it out like all in one sitting, really. And it's just getting it done. Procrastination, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I had to get a printer to, print things and scan things and everything. So, I don't know, I don't know what the hang up was, man, but it was worth it in the end.
And how many chapters does your book have?
10,
10 chapters?
yes.
Okay. Now, what is the main, if you had to pick one of your main chapters that you really want people to read, do you have one that you would really emphasize the most?
I believe it would be number 9 when it says closing the translational gap, because
Okay.
it highlights specifically what exactly I'm really trying to say. The rest of the book is just research compilation to prove what I really have to say. And that is important, because if anybody were to refute what I'm saying right now, anybody at any time saying, okay, it has to be in childhood, it's a childhood disorder. No, 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 no. Look it up. My book is right there.
And
It
then
can develop in adulthood. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
now I'm going to say, where were some of your sources for your book?
My own research alone
Okay.
and literature reviews, extensive literature reviews.
Okay. So where can people purchase your book at online?
Oh man. Amazon, all the major retailers. So Westbow Press is my publisher. So the Amazon, Barnes and Noble, those are the biggest ones. And then I think it's on like 65 other platforms, even in different like not different than English. I think there's in Russian and Japanese, Chinese. I don't even remember. To be honest, I lost track a long time ago with how many platforms that this book is being advertised on. It just baffles my mind that it got so much attention. But it's, yeah, people are paying attention to what the message really is, and it's true. I'm glad it's making a difference.
Any plans on writing the second book?
Yes, it's
Okay.
going to be. Well, so I have a website too. Actually, I have a TV interview with Logan Crawford. My website is really lengthy, so hang in here with me. It's called Translational Developmental Psychobiology.com, and it's posted there as well and advertised, but that's what my next book's going to be titled as well, because I'm going to go into more depth into the real nitty-gritty on this biology aspect and how it's it's a it's a disease. It's a mental disease, and it can be formed, well, from childhood. It can be a precursor variable that needs to be considered. It can give you the proclivity, if you're abused as a kid, that you could very easily develop it in adulthood, the ADHD. So that's that's my take home point with that one. But yeah, no, it's gaining a lot of recognition, and as it should. But I'm just baffled. I'm flattered. I mean, it's just what I know, and you should read it.
And as we close out, any final thoughts or closing remarks?
I just appreciate your time. Thank you so much for having me on here.
My pleasure. And where can people find you on social media?
Okay, my website, on social media, Facebook, TikTok, I guess. I'm not on the TikTok too much, but Instagram, because I posted it there. LinkedIn is a big one as well. And I mean, Westbow Press, of course, as well. But yeah, the social media web, just look up my name, Amy Twilegar, AMYTWILEGAR, and you'll see a vast array of how many websites it's on. It's very astonishing to me, and as it should be. very flattered about that. But anyways, social media, this is one of them too. I'm going to post this on my website. Once again, translationaldevelopmentalpsychobiology.com. And that's going to be the name of my next book.
Awesome. Well, Amy, I'd like to
Yay.
thank you so much for doing the interview.
Thank you so much as well. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So that's my time today on the Real Rap Radio Show. And I'll see you guys next time on the Real Rap Radio Show with Walil Archer on Downtown Hot Radio. Peace and blessings, everyone.
Thank you.
Listen to Downtown Hot Radio on the air 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. Tune in by downloading the Downtown Hot Radio's mobile app. Listen on our website, www.downtownhotradio.com.